First of all, I completely agree with Jack. I think Bitcoin needs to be in everyday payments for billions of people. The thing that I believe we've nailed with Spark is this actual perfect balance, in my opinion, between utility and trustlessness. Anything else other than Bitcoin L1 has trust assumptions. So we've really built a mainstream payments network on top of Bitcoin using Spark. Things are going insanely well. So we just brought in SoFi, the first US bank. It's a huge deal. We announced bringing Revolut on like earlier this year.
It sounds like you've built the iOS. I mean, is that analogous to what you've just described? I zoom 10 years ahead and you guys just dominate the ecosystem. Is it going to be too concentrated?
No, I completely agree with that worry. And the incentive here is actually that fast forward 10 years, no one will need any of these tools that we've created. No one.
ARCHIE.
If you're trying to build an internet for money, you have to build it on top of something that behaves like the internet. And Bitcoin is the thing. There's nothing else.
The realization you want to build something on Bitcoin, what did you assess and how did you come to the conclusion that Lightning was what you wanted to build on?
So the first thing that you need to do if you want to compete in global payments is to ensure that the asset that is moving the value, or the settlement asset, is moving on top of a network at a speed that is comparable to closed networks. And so, of course, Bitcoin L1 wasn't going to cut it by any stretch of imagination. And so at the time when we got started, Lightning was really the only game in town. And we went to work to make Lightning more enterprise grade. I remember vividly that 3.5 years ago, when we started this journey, about 50% of transactions above $50 on a Lightning network would fail because it couldn't find the right path on the network with the proper channel liquidity, and would fail. And so that obviously wasn't going to cut it. So we put an immense amount of work to make Lightning better, to make it more reliable, to enable large enterprises like the Coinbases of this world, et cetera, to use it. And I think we've done a really good job at that. But then we came to the conclusion that Lightning was really great between custodial entities. So if you're bringing banks onto the network, if you're enabling transactions between custodians, it's great because you benefit from privacy, you benefit from a lot of scalability, and you can configure the channels in such a way that it works really, really well. But what we've realized is that it was just not going to work for self-custodial wallets because you have to place liquidity in front of every single wallet, basically, which makes it economically not viable. And if you don't want that, then you need a Lightning service provider, which, can at times, depending on how you look at it, be considered money transmission. So needs to be a regulated entity, and none of these are regulated. So we don't want to do that. And then for issuance of tokens and stablecoins and all kinds of different assets, it doesn't work. It won't work either because of the same problem. It's like you have to have the two parties transmitting a stablecoin on top of Lightning, configure channels for that stablecoin. And so you create all kinds of liquidity mismatches and all kinds of complexity that is really not going to work. And so that's when we realized, okay, we actually need to do a lot of work to figure out how we extend the capabilities of Lightning. And that's where Spark was born, where we needed to really, really extend the capabilities for self-custodial wallets, extend the capabilities for stablecoins, because despite the fact that I had like my schizophrenic period with stablecoins, not knowing whether I wanted to support them or not support them, I realized you can't fight a market that actually is all about stablecoins right now. And the reason I was schizophrenic is because stablecoins by nature are fully centralized. So back to our earlier part of the conversation, you can call someone and stop a stablecoin. I know exactly who I can call for each of those stablecoins. I think USDT is in a better place, but I think generally speaking, for any of the other stablecoins that exist, you can call the CEO and say, okay, shut it down, and they can. Or freeze accounts or do all kinds of different things. And so I was a little schizophrenic about that. And I still am. And that's why I feel like, when you're moving from one fiat currency to another fiat currency, using Bitcoin as a neutral settlement asset is superior to using a stable coin. But if people want to hold a stable coin in all kinds of different parts of the world, it's a better currency than their home currency to hold dollars in the form of a stable coin. even if you trust the issuer. Then if you have to do that, like let's actually bring it on top of Bitcoin so that at least the settlement layer, the network that moves that stablecoin, is actually the most neutral open network, and you can exit the L2 in this case to Bitcoin at any given point in time if you so choose to do so. And I think that's really important. So Spark was born from the need to support stablecoins on top of Bitcoin and to support better Bitcoin wallets for everyone that wants a self-custodial wallet.
You mentioned that a lot of work had to go into the Lightning Network since you started Lightspark. Specifically, any particular areas that you think there have been big improvements on in that time?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, if you're using us to connect to the Lightning Network as a large custodial player, you'll never hear the word channel. So you don't need to configure channels. You don't need to rebalance liquidity. You don't need to figure out how to route specific transactions or to split large transactions into subatomic transactions that get reassembled on the other side. We do all of that for you. And so we've done all of that so that the burden to actually get on the network is actually smaller. And now the benefit of Spark is that, like, if you're integrating Spark, you get Spark, Lightning, and L1 in one integration. So if you're a wallet that wants to just support Bitcoin, you do one Spark integration through our SDK or to partner SDK like Breeze or others, and you get the best of Bitcoin plus stablecoins plus like the all of the BTKN, which is Bitcoin token standard. So anything that supports that standard by default is going to work with your wallet, which is really why we're seeing like every day a new wallet pop out, like, of nowhere with support for Bitcoin and Spark. And so
I just want to understand the difference from your company's perspective in how you view Lightning and Spark, because in one way in which you describe it, it sounds to me like it's an alternative and potential competitor, but also something that embraces and facilitates, enables Lightning as well.
Yes, 100%. Like, look, it extends Lightning by enabling it to exist in self-custodial wallets. And like, there's lots of debates, like, with purists around what is self-custody and what is not. And some say, look, if you don't own your own UTXO on L1 and your private key and all of that, like, private key definitely, but it's not self-custodial. I think anything that is not L1 has different trust assumptions. Anything, like, even Lightning.
Well, that's the purpose of, one of the reasons why we go to different layers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To enable some kind of, I was going to say compromise, but I guess a variable.
Yeah.
And if you don't alter any of those variables on Bitcoin, then how are you going to get additional functionality?
No, exactly. So it's like, and I think this is what I think, if you ask me what is the thing that I believe we've nailed with Spark, is this actual perfect balance, in my opinion, between utility and trustlessness. And I think that's the most important thing right now. And some people will argue, no, and it's like not fully trusted, which is true. But anything else other than Bitcoin L1 has trust assumptions. So the question is, what are you willing to give up in terms of small degrees of trustlessness for max utility? And I think for the majority of people is they're fine with the compromise. Like they're not going to keep their life savings in Bitcoin on Spark. I wouldn't. But if I need to transact, hold, all kinds of different stable coins and all kinds of different assets and have money on the network for transactional purposes, totally.
So it's for a totally particular time, for a particular purpose, a compromise is not necessarily the end of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Provided you can close off that window and then you still have your life savings.
And the beauty with the Spark trust assumptions, by the way, is like, you really have to be very paranoid not to trust it, because you actually, first of all, the only moments that there's any trust assumption is when you move money, not when you don't move money. So it's at the time of a transaction. And at the time of a transaction, you have to believe that the previous owner of that Bitcoin that is sent to you is actually colluding with all of the network operators, that all of them are actually behaving in a malicious way. And so, like, it takes a lot of like paranoia to believe that this is actually even remotely possible. It's a very high bar, and the trustlessness of Spark is very, very high. So you can feel good about that. I think there are different trust levels to Lightning versus Spark, etc., and L1, but I think we've hit the right balance. And the beauty with Spark is that it's not a channel-based payment system, so you're not reliant on all of the liquidity problems of a channel-based payment system, and so the beauty also with the way that we've built the SDKs and the way that we've built the network is that it's backward compatible with Lightning. So you have now Wallet of Satoshi, for instance, that is using Spark to have a self-custody wallet for the purpose of providing great consumer experience on the Lightning network. They don't advertise Spark transactions, they advertise Lightning. But it just turns out that they're using Spark.
They're using Lightning through Spark?
Correct.
And so Lightning announced the ability to, to transmit different types of assets.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of possibilities do you see for that within your business as well?
Yeah, so I don't think, look, I hope it works, but I don't think it will on Lightning. And the reason for that is just what we said before, which is that if you're transmitting a stablecoin on top of Lightning, then both sides of the channel need to have the channel configured for that specific asset. Otherwise, it just won't work. So it's like, I'm not sure exactly how you're going to park liquidity specifically for specific stablecoins on the network to move between channels. I'm not sure how that's going to work. For us, what we tried to do is really make it very easy for issuers of all kinds of different assets to be able to issue on Bitcoin, with the benefit of unilateral exits to L1, so that you don't have to trust anyone operating the Spark network to recoup your balance on L1, including for tokens and assets and stablecoins. So if you do that, then Spark becomes really the best way to issue on top of Bitcoin. And it has a lot of other attributes for stablecoin issuers. One is you can pay fees in the stablecoin you're transmitting. Great. That by the way, no one really understands why this actually is so fundamental and so important. But if you were in the market 2 Fridays ago, when the market was starting to liquidate like crazy, the fees jumped very high, especially on Ethereum. Like you had like $300, $400 a transaction, and so you can't build a payments business on top of a network that has fees that can be 100x, like in 1 second. Like it's just like, well, how do you imagine if your Visa card transaction, you're trying to buy something at a merchant, like you're buying a sweater, and your sweater is like $50, and now like they charge you at the payment stage $200, and you're like, what? So this is not going to work for mainstream payments. So what we've done at Spark, because we're also a payments focused company, is we've built the ability for stablecoins to issue easily on top of Bitcoin. You can pay for fees in the stablecoin you're moving. You will soon have the ability to, as an issuer, configure interchange at the network level, so you can actually make transactional revenue for your stablecoin moving on a network and disperse that to merchants and others to adopt your stablecoin. So we've really built a mainstream payments network on top of Bitcoin using Spark, and we've configured it in a way that's actually really conducive to mainstream payment adoption. Because if we were going to bring stablecoins on top of Bitcoin, we just wanted to make sure that it was going to be the best place for issuers to issue and use it for this mainstream payment use case.
So one of the challenges the Lightning Network has, as you alluded to, is liquidity within channels. Mm-hmm. And so my sort of developing thesis is that these Bitcoin treasury companies are an ideal candidate to provide that liquidity, because they're accumulating a bunch of Bitcoin that's just sitting there doing not too much. And there's going to be growing, shareholder pressure to actually do something if they can. Does Spark remove the potential and ability to generate that yield?
I mean, you don't need to do that if you're using Spark.
So a few months ago, probably about 3 months ago, I think it was Jack Dorsey's Block announced that they were able to, through a pilot trial, earn around about 10% yield on Bitcoin by providing liquidity in a channel. Does that now become a redundant process? It's just not necessary?
It depends how the market plays out, right? So there are different views on how Lightning evolves and the role it plays. Some say Lightning is basically going to be the lowest common denominator for real-time Bitcoin settlement.
What does that mean?
Like it means that like if you have many L2s on top of Bitcoin and you have liquidity that is like Bitcoin liquidity or maybe tokens, but like let's focus on Bitcoin for now. You have Bitcoin liquidity that exists in different L2s for different purposes. That if you need to move liquidity between all of these L2, the common language that all of these L2s will speak is Lightning. And so you can actually net settle or move liquidity between these L2s in real time using Lightning. So it becomes the interop of all the L2s because L1 is just too expensive, too slow. So maybe that's, the future state of Lightning if we end up in a world where you have different L2s taking share for different use cases that they're better at. And in this case, you'll have to enable that liquidity to move between these L2s, each of these L2s on Lightning, and you'll need the liquidity to do that, and you'll need the channels, and you'll need everything that you currently use on Lightning to do it. If it's not going to be that, and another L2 is actually going to take the lion's share of the volume, then maybe you don't need that. But I don't know. And I'm of the opinion that my opinion doesn't matter. It's like, people are building things, we're building things. At the end of the day, the best products will take share. Is it going to be a winner-take-all thing? I'm not sure. Is it going to be a very fragmented world with lots of L2s? Maybe, I don't know. We're focused on building for a specific use case and building the best possible product for payments use cases and for issuance on top of Spark. And we'll see how much share we get, over time. But I think Lightning plays a really important role in providing the connective tissue between all of these different L2s and L1.
Oh, yeah, whether or not Bitcoin must become a means of exchange has been quite a hot topic of late, especially since Jack's voiced his opinions and made his tweets. He always tends to steer the narrative on the timeline quite profoundly in some moments. But do you think it has to become a means of exchange in order for Bitcoin to survive? Do you think it's incumbent? And I'm asking someone in the Bitcoin payments business. So, I guess there might be a temptation to talk your book, but do you think it has to happen? Or you're anticipating that it simply will and you want to be a part of that?
No, I mean, look, first of all, I completely agree with Jack. I think Bitcoin needs to be in everyday payments for billions of people. And then the question is like, how? And what does that mean to be in everyday's payment? Is it that you're using the network for everyday payment, or is it that you're using the unit of account, Bitcoin, as the currency for your payments? And I think both of those things are needed for Bitcoin to fulfill its fullest potential. And so we're fully aligned on this with Jack. And I think if you look at what they've done, which is amazing, by the way, like with Square and enabling merchants to accept Bitcoin payments at zero fees, when you actually double click on Bitcoin payments, it's actually really great because they listen to what the merchants and the consumers wanted. And you can actually, as a merchant, accept payments from Bitcoin wallets, but receive your payments in dollars, or a portion in dollars and a portion in Bitcoin. And so in this case, like if you have a balance in dollars and you're converting to Bitcoin in 1 second to make a transaction at zero fee for that merchant's receiving money in dollars, is it everyday Bitcoin? I say yes, it is. It absolutely is. And so for me, this whole idea of making Bitcoin everyday money, it lives on a continuum of using the network, because building on top of the network where you can exchange into the fiat currency you want at the edges, et cetera, is still using Bitcoin for everyday payments. And in some cases, gradually, more and more people, more and more merchants will actually want to have smaller amounts of Bitcoin because they'll see the value in holding Bitcoin that will appreciate over time as a tool for them to grow their businesses, grow their net worth. And I think this is the way. And so in some parts of the world, it's going to be people just using Bitcoin. In some other parts of the world, it's going to be one person in a two-person transaction is using Bitcoin, the other person is receiving something else. In some cases, it's going to be two people or businesses using fiat currencies as both edges, but using Bitcoin, the network, for a transaction. And that's also a way to make Bitcoin part of everyday transactions.
I mean, I can see the profound changes. Let's talk adoption because, most of the narrative is driven by number go up, right? And I was brought in because of number go up. Most of us, we have to confess that we were brought into Bitcoin because of number go up. It's a compelling narrative. But, and as a result of that, we look at the moment for the last 12 or 18 months, certainly since the ETFs have been approved, the story is one of who's making an allocation in the institutional side of the economy. But I'm interested to hear more about adoption from the payment side, some of the customers you're working for, because essentially you provide B2B not software infrastructure for Bitcoin. So can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, the adoption trends that you're seeing, who's showing interest in implementing, what kind of businesses and which types of end customers are they servicing? What's happening in those areas that these companies are actually embracing Bitcoin payments?
Yeah. So let me break it down into pieces. This is all about Bitcoin payments, and we enable all kinds of different types of money movement on top of Bitcoin. So let me break it down. So the first part is enabling regulated financial institutions to use Bitcoin, the network, to move money in real time across currencies, banking and payment systems, countries, and more. So on this front, things are going insanely well. So we just brought in SoFi, the first US bank, which in itself is when you think about what it takes to bring a US regulated bank onto using Bitcoin for transactions at the consumer level and expose that to their millions of customers. It's a huge deal. And so SoFi is live and they've launched last week. But we also have Nubank that has been building on top of the network. And
that's the Brazilian company.
They operate in Brazil and in Colombia and in Mexico. And so they're leaning in hard on building on top of this as well. We announced bringing Revolut on earlier this year. We announced a number of other banks and financial institutions all over the world. And so this idea that you can actually remove the current payment system that is not real time, that takes 3 days to settle, that is expensive, with a real-time payment system that's built on top of Bitcoin for the purpose of fiat transactions powered by Bitcoin, is really taking hold and is taking off. And we're seeing it in volumes. We're seeing it in adoption. We're seeing it in a number of banks that are currently implementing as well. So that's going really, really well.
What are the incumbent systems they're replacing with your services?
I mean, it's Swift and correspondent banking, right? Swift is just a messaging piece, so just put that aside, but it's correspondent banking that doesn't work Friday after 5 p.m. That costs $45 to $50 per transaction, that, no one except if you're a bank has access to, and is older than I am.
It's hard to believe the world is still at that level. The banks are still at that level. HSBC in the UK is at 4 p.m. it closes. Well, at least from my account. I'm not important enough for extended services. And it's mind-boggling.
Yeah. Well, the fact that there's such a concept as extended services for your best customers is says it all, right? So anyways, that stuff is really, really going very, very well. Then there's Spark, where we've launched to mainnet and mainnet beta 6 months ago. And on that, I'm just beyond happy. It's the developer energy and the builder energy on top of Spark is insane. It's literally every day I open X and there's someone that has launched a new wallet or
Tell us
bridge.
about some products that have been launched that excite you.
So first of all, the wallets. So in the wallet space, we really have Wallet of Satoshi that has made a big comeback in the US using Spark. You have Xverse that has implemented Spark and is using it for all the Bitcoin DeFi stuff and is doing really amazing product work there. We have WDK, so Tether, is launching or has launched now the wallet development kit that will power the Rumble wallet and others. And it has Spark inside, which is
Rumble,
huge for us.
the YouTube rival sort of
exactly.
video play. Okay. Yep. Gotcha.
So that's massive for us, and also a great way to work more closely with Tether that we really admire and want to do more things with. And then there's all the other tools. So you have Privy, which is a wallet platform that enables anyone to spin up a wallet and never have to see a seed phrase. You can log in with your Google or your Google Authenticator, or your Google account, your phone number, or any other login, and you can build a Spark wallet in seconds, basically. And we had Henry, the CEO of Privy, at our partner summit last week, demoing actually building a wallet for a neobank on top of Spark. You have Braille, which is like a stablecoin issuance platform that has issued USDB, the first stablecoin that they intend to have rewards in Bitcoin paid for, etc. That's launched on top of it.
What's USDB? What is that?
It's USD Bitcoin. It's like a stablecoin for the Bitcoin network. We have Flashnet that has built an enterprise grade AMM, so that other launchpads and playgrounds like Luminex, and there's another one, UTXO.fun. We're a payments company, by the way. We never expected this to happen, but when you build a permissionless network and you give developers and builders tools, they'll go and build whatever they want. And when you can actually issue tokens really efficiently on top of Bitcoin for the first time and tap into the Bitcoin liquidity, you have all of these, basically the pump.fun version, the Bitcoin version of pump.fun actually launching, and you see volumes from that happening. You had another wallet launch yesterday. Breeze has built a Rust SDK to launch basically nodeless Lightning support. So you don't have to run a Lightning node. You don't have to manage your channels and your liquidity. You just use their SDK and you can build a wallet in 2 seconds on top of Lightning. You have so many others. There's this really fun that I encourage you to play with called Blitz, which is this X tipping wallet. That's how they started, but they're doing way more things. Okay. So I can tip you on X, sats, small amounts of sats. I'll tip you after the show and you'll see it. It's
anyway, I'll take any tip.
It's really fun, and they're building the whole stack now. Super awesome builders. And every day there's 5 more like this. And so we're seeing a lot of builder energy come back to Bitcoin. And all of these builders were not building on Bitcoin before. They tried many years ago, and then they went and built on EVMs and Solana, and now they're coming back for the first time. So I'm very happy about this.
Yeah, unfortunately, one of the worst things about running this account on Twitter is that you can't. When my DMs were open, I was constantly getting proposals to promote this, and it's we're doing Bitcoin, but on such and such network, and then it's also got this token. And as soon as you hear token, the word, you just shut off. And what I'm hearing now, but please correct me if I'm wrong, is those people are now coming to literally build on Bitcoin now as a result of Spark, and so it seems to be absorbing quite a lot of developer energy from the broader crypto ecosystem. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Yes, 100%. And so then how does it all come together? Because we talked about very different things, the pump.fun of Bitcoin and providing regulated bank payments, right? And so how do these things all come together? And so the fun part with all of the activity on Spark is that it's creating so many wallets. And those wallets are now compatible with Bitcoin, with Lightning, with Spark, with stablecoins on top of Spark. And at our partner summit last week, we announced this new product called Grid, Lightspark Grid.
Lightspark Grid.
And what it does is that it actually brings together all of these capabilities that we've built over the last 3.5 years behind very, very simple APIs. And so you as a developer can use Grid and have Bitcoin as like the way you integrate, or have a stablecoin as the way you integrate, or have a fiat account. And it's basically, you deposit dollars or euros into your Grid account. And now what can you do? You can send money from that account to any of the endpoints that are banks or accounts on the network. So 65 countries with real-time payment systems, 24/7, super low cost. You can send from dollars to Bitcoin on a Spark wallet in 1 second, and you can spin up these wallets in real time. You can send from that fiat account to a stablecoin on any of these wallets in real time, or receive from any of these endpoints. So we've basically API'd the network and all of the capabilities that we have on the regulated side with banks and wallets and regulated entities, all the way to the self-custodial wallet able to receive Bitcoin and stablecoins. And it's all come together under the roof of that one entry point.
I mean, that sounds incredible. Have you just built the iOS
really
for Bitcoin? Because what you've described sounds like an operating system with an app store attached. I mean, you might have seen, I guess, a puzzled look on my face, because it was, part impressed and part. Am I understanding this correctly? It sounds like you've built the iOS of. I mean, is that analogous to what you've just described?
I mean, the difference is, with iOS, you have to talk to someone to actually issue your app on the App Store. In our case, we don't ever mean to be that gatekeeper or have that kind of power. But we basically built a series, and I said it, early in our conversation, we're Bitcoin plumbers, right? So we've built amazing plumbing for Bitcoin. We've built amazing sets of technologies to make Bitcoin more powerful, move faster, cheaper, support all kinds of asset types and tokens and stablecoins. And now we've created simple APIs that developers and builders can actually use to use Bitcoin for global money movements in ways that really weren't possible until now. And so in a way, we've done that. But iOS, I see.
It's not a like for like analogy, but I'm trying to.
Did we build an operating system for Bitcoin for money movement? Maybe that's a good way to say it.
So I know there are people out there, because I've had my finger on the pulse for the last 5 years. And immediately, I zoom 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, and you guys just dominate the ecosystem. Yeah, you've developed an infrastructure so compelling that everyone just builds on it. Is it going to be too concentrated? And I know from your point of view is, well, like, if no one can compete with us, why shouldn't we win all that market share, right?
No,
but I guess if we just sort of step back a little bit, and just say from a Bitcoin health point of view.
No, I completely agree with that worry. And I like, look, a part of me, like a rational capitalist, thinks it's like a great thing if we can win it all. But also I've been there, and I don't like building on Bitcoin is hard. It's way harder than building on anything else. And if we had done all of this for the purpose of actually building a giant centralized thing on top of it, like, why would we
But I don't mean for the purpose of that, but just by sheer coincidence and perhaps, excellence and being first in the market. And the fact that, like you said, it's really hard to build on Bitcoin.
Yep.
You see what I mean?
So, no, totally. I totally see what you mean. But like, I'm saying, like, my point and my objective, at least, as far as I'm concerned personally, is to build something that is really like to make Bitcoin the internet of money. And so we're building the tools and the capabilities in order to do that. And I often tell the team, look, we're not successful if we don't have head-on competition for the exact thing we're building. And this is why we've open sourced everything, right? So Spark is open sourced, like UMA, like universal money address that is used by all these banks, open sourced. Like all of the stuff that we've built is open source. We make contribution to the Bitcoin open source ecosystem as well. And we want to encourage like baby Lightsparks and others to actually get built on top of the technology we've built so that you have a choice of providers. And by the way, the beauty with the network here is that, I'm a huge fan of the incentive system that was baked into Bitcoin from day one. Huge fan. And the incentive here is actually that, like, fast forward 10 years. Fast forward 10 years, no one will need any of these tools that we've created. No one. So we're creating ephemeral tools for the purpose of delivering the value of Bitcoin today. But if you fast forward 10 years from now, no one will need these tools. Why? Because the banks will connect natively onto Bitcoin the same way that Nubank has done. Nubank is connected natively onto Bitcoin because they can convert in and out of Bitcoin easily from Brazilian reais to Bitcoin and then use the Lightning Network. They've done the work. And everyone will want to do that because it'll be the cheapest way to get on the network and send and receive transactions. At which point, like, you know, all of the stuff that we've built for interoperability with the domestic payment systems, etc., becomes completely irrelevant. But we need to get all of these banks there. And if you ask all the banks in the world and all of the market participants to connect natively onto Bitcoin, to do the conversion, to connect on Lightning or Spark, like it'll never work, right? You'll never get to escape, like the network escape velocity that you need. And so this is the way that we become, over time, not a single point of failure, is by actually successfully bringing so many market participants onto Bitcoin that then the incentives push them to connect natively. And I'm sure we'll provide them services to do that and we'll be fine. But the bottom line is, I don't think we're going to build a giant like central hub where everything is going to be connected, because the incentive to go native is going to be so much greater than the entropy of not.
One of the virtues of Bitcoin is permissionless. If someone builds on top of Spark, you know, is David Marcus the guy the administration calls to say,
no, Spark is fully permissionless.
It is permissionless.
Fully permissionless. So you can build whatever you want on it. We have no opinions and no ways to actually stop you from building it. Which is why I said what I said earlier, which is like, you know, we're not like a meme coin factory by any stretch of imagination. I'm like the last meme coin guy. But it's fun to see the whole, you know, fun coin, meme coin ecosystem being built on top of Bitcoin, on top of Spark, even despite us, right? It's just like we've offered the basic primitives and capabilities to builders, and they want to tap into Bitcoin liquidity. They're going at it, and they're not calling me to ask me or the team whether they can or cannot do this. They're just building away.
You mentioned that there is an appetite from the banking sector, particularly the first bank that you said, SoFi, has come on board.
First US bank. We had other non-US banks.
And is there an appetite from some of the large e-commerce providers?
I mean, I think it's a chicken and egg thing. So e-commerce will be massively interested when they can receive payments from hundreds of millions of consumers wanting to buy their stuff. I think, you know, we focused first on consumers, like so banks and wallets, where we can reach enough consumers. So then we can move on to commerce players that will want to receive payments from these consumers. But it's a prerequisite to have lots of consumers.
What sort of assets do you think will find product market fit on top of Spark?
So, I mean, stablecoins, for sure.
Yeah.
And then there's all kinds of really interesting things. I think Bitcoin is kind of unique in many ways. And I believe that if people truly understand the value of building on top of a truly neutral network that no one controls, so, you know, you're not, you know, basically king making a corp chain and then you become captive and victim of you know, your creation, which happens a lot in financial services. When you look at all of the payment schemes, like they started open. Like the early days of Visa, it was an association, a non-for-profit association with member banks, right? It's like not where we are today. But I think that, like, at the end of the day, anyone wanting to issue on top of a decentralized network with the ability to exit to L1, have that guarantee that you can get your balance out at any given point in time, will want to build it. And so, you know, tokenized money market funds, tokenized real world assets, tokenized stocks. Over time, I think, you know, again, like this was not our focus. Our focus was singularly on payments. And that's why we've built Spark in the way that we've built Spark. But it turns out that if you're building a world-class network for stablecoins with very low guaranteed fees, predictable, you can pay the fees in the asset you're transmitting. You can do you can have unilateral exits to L1. It's actually a great platform for all kinds of other tokenized assets.